From Rick's letter on July 24 this year, Rick told us that he was in Boston and away from set. But now, in his more recent letter, he now returns to Vancouver, and because of this, he titled the article as Back on Set with the Demigod Squad. So now, let's break down this letter. Rick starts this off by admitting what happened before he left Boston. Before leaving Boston, Rick admits that he watched a concert from a singer named Elton John, and he showed this picture of it. Rick tells us that it was an amazing night because he managed to bring his son Haley along with him. On the sad side though, Rick had to leave his pet dog in Boston before leaving for Vancouver. Once Rick arrives at set, he says that he saw a brazier of hot coals burning, and he jokes about how it was an offering to the gods, like what demigods did in Camp Half-Blood. And then, Rick goes on about how they had to prepare 260 lunches every day for the entire crew, which just means that there are so many people working on the show. Aside from this, Rick tells us that his highlight this week was meeting his editor Steph Fleury, and how Steph went around the set and met with the cast members. Rick even mentions that he, his wife Becky, and Steph got to travel around Vancouver together. What made me really happy was that if you look a bit closely in this picture, Steph was actually wearing an orange Camp Half-Blood cap, which Rick even mentions below the picture. He said, Steph got a lot of compliments on our Camp Half-Blood hat, which is a vintage item left over from one of our promotional book tours. She was Demigod before Demigod was cool. And then, Rick shows these two pictures. One was Mount Tantalus and a forest near set. He remarks that filming was going very well, and that they don't really film in chronological order. Rick continues about this, saying, but in general, we have now covered most of the principal photography for Block 1, which has been overseen by our fearless directional leader, James Bobbin. He adds that while filming episodes, James begins creating a director's cut for the work he has done so far. After that, the producers along with Rick will make the necessary revisions, and the studio would put in their input. Rick assures us that everything is on schedule, and he goes on to promote a movie called The Old Man, which was a film made by the show's showrunners John Steinberg and Dan Schatz. And then, Rick addressed a question that really excited me, and the question was, how much Percy content have we covered? For this, Rick said, if you were following along in the book, we have pretty much filmed through Chapter 9 in The Lightning Thief. I immediately checked what Chapter 9 was, because again, it's been so long since I actually read the book, the last time being around the summer of 2020. So I checked through the chapter list, and I realized that Rick was right. They did capture a lot from the book. Chapter 9 is called I Am Offered a Quest, which is just around the time that Percy realized the situation Poseidon and Zeus were in, and how they were about to start their journey to retrieve Zeus's lightning bolt. That's a pretty good chunk of the book, and I'm really impressed about this. Rick assures us even more that the filming was accurate, saying, and yes, the filming has followed the book story very closely, almost as if the author were involved himself. Sure, there were small tweaks and changes here and there, which were mutually agreed upon, but the biggest difference is the value added. You will get peeks at character backstory, foreshadowing Easter eggs of things to come, and nuances in Percy's family history that I think you will love. This is honestly amazing, and I want to know what kind of foreshadowing they wrote and filmed so far. That's going to look incredible, and once again, I am so excited for the show. Rick then shows these 3 photos, which he says is a view from their apartment. Rick admits that every evening, he'd go home with his wife tired but happy, and he tells to himself that it isn't a bad gig. After this, Rick goes on about the cast members, and even mentioned that he spent the day with dryads and satyrs, and how they delivered the perfect scene with Aryan Simhadri, aka Grover's actor. Rick then mentions the Golden Trio, saying, as I predicted, our main trio is so incredible that it's now very difficult for me to imagine Percy, Annabeth, and Grover without seeing Walker, Leia, and Aryan. They are owning these characters in the best possible way. You will see what I mean when you watch the show. If you are a doubter, you will doubt no longer. But for now, you'll have to take my word for it. Rick then suggests shows that the cast are on, like the Trevor musical which Aryan starred in, a movie called Beast where Leia is going to star in, and he also mentioned Secret Headquarters, which is a movie that Walker starred in. In the next paragraph, Rick mentions the film adaptation for Daughter of the Deep, and how they were continuing and moving with the script. He also thanks everyone, because the book reached 41 weeks in the New York Times bestseller list. Another update Rick had was the Kane Chronicles adaptation, and how he was expecting a draft of a script. And then, Rick goes on about what he watches during his spare time. He mentions shows like Strange New Worlds, Stranger Things, Grace and Frankie, Blackbird, and Miss Marvel. With the books he's reading at the moment, he mentions the following: The End of the World is Just the Beginning, Il Nome de la Rosa, and Paradise Lost. He's currently listening to Harry's House, The Essential Leonard Cohen, and Red Garland, A Garland of Red. Rick then tells us that he's been off social media for 2 years for his mental health, and how his social media helpers are the ones who post the updates on his social media pages. Rick ends the letter by saying, I'll leave you all with that. Time to stretch my legs and explore the city. Last weekend, Becky and I hiked to the end of Stanley Park. We got to see the 9 o'clock gun, which we hear every evening, and the amazing totem poles. Not sure where we'll end up today, but I'm sure it will be a great adventure. Keep reading, everyone. And that's how the letter ends. I don't know about you guys, but this was a pretty amazing update to me, especially the Easter eggs thing he mentioned earlier. I am so excited to see the foreshadowing they made, and especially the show. So how about you? What do you think of all these updates? Let me know in the comments down below.